right, we're going to get into creative writing. Now, I love creative writing. I think it's a lot of fun, but I know that plenty of students are a little bit nervous about it. It doesn't have the same sort of structure that many of the other English tasks have, which makes it a little bit more difficult to approach. But we're going to break it down, we're going to simplify it a little bit, and I'm going to give you quite a few little tips to ensure that you have a sort of a solid idea or a solid plan about how you might go approaching a task like this, because often getting started with creative is the hardest part. If you just continue looking at a blank page, you can sort of get caught in a bit of a loop, not able to get things going. But if you have a little bit of a more solid approach, then that part of the process is easier. So that's my hope for this section of our session today. All right, the traditional purpose of creative writing is to entertain. That's why people tell stories. But it is also used to communicate deeper messages to a much wider audience as well. So not everyone likes reading the news, not everyone likes reading analytical essays about Shakespeare, but plenty of people enjoy reading stories. They enjoy watching movies, they enjoy watching plays, they enjoy watching TikTok videos. All of these are telling stories of some kind or another. The key features of creative writing can take hundreds of forms. There is no single cookie cutter approach to writing creatively, but it usually hinges on the genre or the type of piece. So the Gothic genre, for instance, or poetry as like a particular style of writing. So typically creative writing comes as a response to a text. So you'll be given some other kind of text, a poem or a short story, a play, a novella, those kind of things. And then you have to write a creative piece in response to that text. So often it'll be done as in exam conditions. So you'll respond in your creative writing in exam conditions. So yes, that is that. All right, as I definitely alluded to right at the start of our session today and a few more times throughout, planning is your friend. It is your friend for creative writing just as it is your friend for analytical as well. Just because you aren't writing an essay doesn't mean that you should lose all sense of logic and flow. In a creative piece, you have this natural build up of tension towards a climax where you're drawing audiences in closer, ready for a bit of a reveal. So your writing needs to be clear. It needs to have that clear sense of build up, that rise in emotion as well. So where are you going? Where is the story going? What do you want people to get out of your piece? What do you want audiences to understand by the time they're finished reading? When you begin your plan, start with key characters, plot points, setting, etc. Whatever you have predetermined in your mind that you want to write about, use that as a starting point. As I said earlier, this idea of blank page syndrome can really paralyze students. It prevents them from getting started. So whatever you have in your mind, whatever idea you have, no matter how far-fetched it might seem, get it down on the piece of paper and use it to start forming a broader idea. You can build the story around any tiny little detail that you'd like. It's really important to remember that your first draft is just a skeleton. It's just a foundation. It's not what you're going to be handing in at the end. It's pretty much impossible to get a product that you're really, really proud of the first try. So don't be afraid to go back to your draft and add in aesthetic features, build on it, refine it, add dialogue or improve description. Like a cake, you can really build a layer at a time. And often, despite popular belief, creatives often aren't even written in chronological order either. You might like write your conclusion because you have a really solid idea of what that's going to look like, and then you go back, excuse me, and write a section from the middle and do the same again. So depth, intricacy, complexity, all of that comes with time. So as I mentioned earlier as well, you want to give yourself as much time as possible to create a story that you're really proud of. And often the final story that you hand in as your final piece will look very, very different to perhaps the one that you initially planned. That's just the nature of creative writing. It's really important to make it your own in the same way that you're far more engaged in watching a movie that you picked, that you actually enjoy. The same thing goes for writing creatively as well. So I encourage you to tackle with and play around with concepts, characters, ideas, and themes that you're passionate about, that you find interesting, that you would want to read about or watch about or hear about. So write characters that excite you, set the story in places that you love, deal with problems that you feel like you want to find a solution to yourself. That will make the writing process far easier because you're emotionally invested in what you're writing rather than something that feels very far away and distant. All right, so it's most likely that your creative piece is going to be in response to a separate text. So you'll be given an initial text and you have to sort of create an adaptation of that story or play with the key themes or ideas or take a key character and reshape them in some sort of way. So a few pieces of advice based on this part of the process, because this can be a little bit tricky as well. Give yourself time to read the stimulus, that base text as it might be called, in its entirety and as thoroughly as possible. So you want to get a really good grip about the author's message, their key intention in writing the text, a really good understanding of the characters and the key themes, even the writing style as well, because all of that can be used as inspiration for your own story. It's likely that your teacher will give you something specific that you have to bring into your own piece. But if you get to choose for yourself, I would encourage you to pick something like a key theme because it's really broad and it allows you a lot of freedom within that to write about what you actually want to write about rather than, taking a key character or a key event that you have to reshape. That can be a little bit trickier. So have a go at not just looking at one element, but even some subtler elements or smaller elements in the base text that you can incorporate into your own writing as well, even just referencing them. So it could be the main character in the base text has a nickname that is used a lot. And in your writing, perhaps the house that your main character lives in, has that same nickname. Maybe there's a little Easter egg in terms of costuming, which you include in yours as well. Or a key aesthetic feature like a symbol or a motif that is used a lot in the original that you incorporate in your own piece of writing, but in a new way. So think about how you can draw little parallels and have little Easter eggs in your own writing. Teachers will be able to recognize them because they're English teachers, and they'll love it. They will eat it up and you will definitely be rewarded for it. So have a little bit of fun about how you might take smaller, subtler elements from the original and incorporate them into your own writing as well. It's going to demonstrate that you have carefully read and understood the base text, but also incorporating the same aesthetic features in conjunction with your own. So you're not just taking the original and sort of tweaking it a little bit and hope that no one can tell the difference. You want to create something that is wholly new. You want to have a new author's message that is entirely yours. You're just getting inspiration from the original text a little bit. All right. The most important element of a piece of creative writing is good characters. I've said it once, I've said it a million times, it is absolutely true. Good characters, they are the vessel of the story. If an audience can't connect or relate to a main character, then they're not actually going to be interested with the deeper message that you're trying to tell. I'm sure you've all read or watched or heard some sort of media in the past where it looked really interesting on paper. Maybe like the little Netflix description looked so interesting and you're like, this is totally up my street. I am so interested in watching this. And then the main character is just so annoying or so shallow or has terrible relationships or something like that, and you just can't watch it no matter how interesting the concept is. We want to avoid this problem with your own writing as well, and that goes back to writing really good characters. So the best characters are very simply believable. Human beings aren't just one thing. They exist on a whole spectrum of human emotion with thousands of different emotions within it. So they have complicated pasts, everyone has different backstories, they're unique, they grow, they change, they develop. So this means that they often might appear simple right at the beginning of your story because you're only writing short stories. You don't have time for long, lots of exposition. But as they go through, they'll gain complexity and depth, and the audience will understand more about them as they go. Their character, their personality will come through in the way that they act and the way that they speak. So actions and words are sort of working together to create this image, this personality in the mind of readers. And they aren't bogged down by physical description. As I said before, this is a short story. You really don't have the word count to be doing like a whole paragraph on the particular shade of blue that their eyes are. It's just not entirely relevant. Audiences kind of like to come up with their own picture of the character in their mind anyway. So unless the physical description is important to the story or important to a particular theme or relationship, then you don't even really have to mention it. It's more about what they're like, what they say, how they act. That is what is going to engage audiences more. That's what's going to make them more interesting. So how do you write good characters? Really what you want to do is answer these 3 questions for each of your characters. Now, you probably don't have time to have a cast of, 12 or 13 people. Generally, it's 1, 2, or 3 characters. So for each of the characters that you're including in your short story, you want to answer these 3 questions for them in order to shape a personality for each that is really believable. The first is, what do you want? What do you want most in the world? Humans are generally pretty ambitious creatures. Everyone kind of wants something. Everyone's working towards something. And you can tell a lot about a person based on what it is that they want. World peace, world destruction, a good sandwich from the shop down the road. So first you need to look at what the character's goal is and see where their priorities lie. Next is, why do you want it? So the reasoning behind a character's desires could be their personality, their background, or even the situation they find themselves in the text in. So why is it that they want world peace? Why is it that they want a sandwich from the shop down the road? And then how do you plan on getting it? More than anything, the means and lengths to which a character will go to get what they want is important. Maybe a character wants a sandwich, but they'll kill someone to get it. The stakes are immediately raised there. It's not just as simple as like, oh, I'm a little bit hungry and like Vegemite's the only thing we have in the fridge and like, I know there's a little bit of bread in the freezer, so I'll just, make a Vegemite sandwich. It's like, no. Vegemite, there's only one Vegemite sandwich left on earth, and I have to be the last one that eats the Vegemite sandwich, because the last one that eats the Vegemite sandwich will get the blessing of eternal life. And so I have to be the one that has the last Vegemite sandwich. And so I am willing to do whatever it takes to get that sandwich. I will kill someone to get that sandwich. And immediately the stakes are raised and we have a story. We have something interesting. We have something engaging. We have a character that we want to explore more, that we are interested to follow and hear more about. All right, so a little bit of an example. We have a classic character that I'm sure many of you will be familiar with, at least to some extent, and some of you will be even more familiar with by the end of the year, and that is Hamlet of Denmark from the Shakespearean play Hamlet. Now, what type of character is he? Now, there's a little bit of contention about what type of character is he. Some people believe he's a hero, some people believe he's an anti-hero. That's kind of up for debate. So what is his desire? What does he want more than anything in the world? Well, he wants revenge for his father and to bring order back to Denmark. So his father has been murdered. Spoiler, Hamlet spoiler. His father has been murdered. He wants revenge for his father's murder. And because he is the prince of Denmark, he wants to bring order back to his kingdom. Why does he want it? What are the lengths and means? Hamlet is willing to kill people and himself, Hamlet spoiler, to ensure order is restored to the kingdom. He schemes and he tricks and he sacrifices in the name of justice. But his plans really reveal the truth of him. His character is revealed in the way that Hamlet goes about this plan. Due to his personality, he never gets around to doing it as he should. He is the #1 literary procrastinator. He just goes, oh, not yet. Not yet. Should I do that? Should I not do that? Should I do that? And then he doesn't really do anything in time, and he's punished for it by the end of the play. Hamlet spoiler. It is really important to remember you need to consider the key message of the text. So like, what point are you trying to make? What do you want audiences to know or understand by the end of the text? And how might that character link to that understanding as well? Really, really important. All right, Other little things about characters, you can make a little bit more of a refined, robust profile for your characters, particularly if you only have one or two, to really allow you to get in their shoes. And as you write, they will feel really believable as if they're real people. So maybe where are they from? Their physical and cultural background can define what a person is like. It can define who they've become and what they've gone through to be the person that they are today. What do they like and dislike? This indicates what they crave and what they value, what repulses them, and what might set them on the path to justice. Physical traits. Now, I know I said that physical traits aren't that important, but for you as the author, if you want to be able to picture them in your own mind, then you might consider what they physically look like. It's also possible that, like, the story, their physical traits are important to the story. So perhaps the person that will be, you know, cursed will be the first person born with brown eyes in 1,000 years, something like that. So something physical is actually important to the story. And then also their situation. So what unique or different circumstances does your story present? How is this story, this situation different to their regular life? How does it spur them into action? Why is this the moment where they decide that they're going to go after what it is they really want? And how does your character respond to the situation? Are they really excited? Are they engaged? Are they ready to get started? Or are they a little bit more apprehensive and like, oh, I don't know, a bit of a reluctant hero? So it's important to get into their brains and to get into their shoes to help. All right. We're going to take another little moment for a little bit of an activity now. We're going to take 5 minutes, and I want you to pick a character from your favorite movie or TV show or book, and I want you to come up with a little bit of a profile for them like this one for Hamlet. So what type of character are they? Are they the hero? Are they the antagonist? Are they a sidekick character? Are they a love interest? What kind of character are they? And then you can answer these 3 questions. What is it that they want more than anything in the world? Why do they want it? And how do they plan on getting it? And then if you have time, you can write a little sentence or 2 sentences about what this means for their characterization. What kind of character does this make them? So have a go, have a write, play around with it. Think about how this creates good characters. Maybe that's the other question as well. Once you filled out that little profile, consider, why do you like this character so much? Why are they engaging? Why do you love them? And that can be really helpful when you're forming your own characters for your writing as well. All right, we've gotten started. Have a go. And then we'll get into a little bit more creative writing, and then we'll get into our analytical. Doing great. All right. Do you like how I just keep appearing out of nowhere? Okay, yes, excellent. Well done. So I hope that that was an interesting conversation, an interesting activity to explore the importance of characters. I think that when it comes to writing short stories, people really focus on the shape of the plot or the themes, and they forget that characters play such an important role in creative writing. And I think a lot of people don't realize the effect that good characterization has on a story, on tension, on emotion, on build up, on all of these things. So I encourage you to continue thinking about characters even when you're not doing work in English, even when you're just playing around or reading or writing or watching movies for fun, to be considering those characters and considering the impact that they have. Okay, so remember, your character, they are the vessel for your message. Consider the motive. What do they want? Give them something to chase and make them want to chase it badly. This leads to the build-up in tension and emotion. What are the lengths? What are they willing to do? How far are they willing to go? Put them in a situation in your story where they have to grow and struggle and fight to achieve what it is that they want. And then what do they want to do? How do they plan on achieving the thing? Be creative. Don't just hand it to them. Make them work for it. And you want the journey to be as interesting as possible. All right. So you're going to have to be writing in short story form. So there are a couple of key tips that I wanted to share with you guys, because I know that writing in a shorter format can be tricky. You're trying to get this really sort of verbose and complicated and intricate author's message across, but you don't have a lot of words to do that in. So I just wanted to give you a few tips about how to write short. So you don't have a lot of room for characterization, so your character's voice needs to be really distinct from the very first moment that audiences meet them. You want their characterization to be evident in their actions and their speech rather than any detailed descriptions of them. So don't write, Sophie knew that Luke loved Vegemite all his life because he was such a messy eater and he always had a little bit in the corner of his mouth. She noticed this because she had known him all this time. Instead, you can have the very same information, because there's lots of information in that left column. You can have the same amount of information in a much shorter stance like this. Sophie looked up to see the familiar smudge of Vegemite in the corner of Luke's mouth. At least some things don't change. All right, your cast should be little, so you don't want to have loads of characters. Too many names, too many personalities, too many stories. It just gets confusing. Remember, clarity over complexity. It also eats up your word count. You just don't have the time for it. So keep the cast of characters nice and short. In a similar way, adding subplots, so like lots of stories within the story, it'll add unnecessary length, and it doesn't ultimately contribute to the key message that you're trying to deliver to audiences. So keep it nice and simple so your message shines clearly throughout. If you want to add extra stakes, if you want to add extra tension, all of that needs to be included right at the beginning of the story so that there's tension build up right from the beginning. Exposition in short stories is boring. You don't have time for it. You need to start with a bang. So start right in the middle of action. Something shocking, something sort of jaw-dropping has happened right at the beginning. It's the same sort of activity you want to do as with your hook in a persuasive speech. You want to grab people's attention right from the get-go. So go ahead and start with that bang to get people interested in reading your story. All right, so you want your story to be memorable. So it's really important that you do so in order to leave an impact by the end of the story. So your stakes need to be high for your lead character. It's not sort of just, they're in bed and they hope they could stay in bed. You want to use emotion, really deep emotion, to connect your audience to the story, and be ruthless in your editing. If a word, a sentence, a phrase doesn't add to the overall message you're trying to share, cut it out. Get rid of it. If you are feeling particularly attached to something but it doesn't feel like it fits in the story, you can cut it from a document and save it in a different document for later. All right, try to avoid cliches. It was all a dream and then it all went black. Those sorts of things. It won't take long for you to think of something more clever than that. Those cliches have been overdone, they're overused, they don't have the same impact that maybe they did when they first were invented. So be creative, think outside the box, and pick something different. All right, so to keep things nice and tight, the problem needs to be introduced right at the beginning of the story. Really important. Characterization is built through the character's response to the problem. The problem cannot be fixed initially. That is what brings distress and tension to the story. And the problem needs to be resolved by the end. So we don't want to have cliffhangers, again, overdone. So instead there needs to be some sort of resolution. That doesn't mean that it needs to be a Disney happily ever after at the end, but we need to feel as if things have sort of come to some kind of conclusion. Also, if you're writing in a Word or a Google document, you can double space your lines. It sometimes just tricks your brain to think that there are more words on the page than there actually are, and that'll help you to keep things nice and tight and not add too many extra words. Because if you start filling up loads of pages, you'll be like, whoa, too much, and sort of have to rein it back. So that's like a little trick that you can do to keep things going.